developing the teams that are working on what the next steps will be. I know the president may be saying something later on today if he hasn't already said something. The governor is planning on saying something on tomorrow. But we are right now having those type of conversations. Ask me that question a little bit later on, maybe next week.
Certainly there's planning that is taking place. You just alluded to that. Could you give us some specifics? I'm not in a position right now to give you any specifics on that. What I can tell you, testing is critically important, making sure that we slow the progression of this virus so that it doesn't overwhelm our healthcare delivery system, making sure that we protect our vulnerable populations and people at risk. And those are individuals with heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, on dialysis, asthma, sickle cell anemia, our seniors, because all 29 of the people who have died with some underlying medical condition. That's where the focus is right now. And we are having conversations, but we are not at this point ready to announce how we are going to open this city up at this point in time. Those announcements or pronouncements will come, but today is not the day for those statements. So you haven't identified any sectors in particular as of right now?
Today is not the day that I'm going to make those announcements. We have these press conferences every single day. At the right time, we'll make those pronouncements, but today is not the day.
Are you and the county judge on the same page today and moving forward in terms of how you're going to reopen the economy? And I'm asking because some would say the tone of her news conference this morning was sort of darker and more doom and gloomish than the tone that you have all had here during your news conferences this week.
Well, we're all saying the same thing, and that is this is not the time to be saying to people we're going to open up. In that sense, the county judge and I are on the same page. We both recognize that it's important for people to engage in social distancing, to stay home safely, to work safely, to protect vulnerable populations. We don't want to overcrowd our healthcare delivery system. We are on the same stage, on the same page. There is totally no separation between the county judge and I on that. We are on the same page. But for those people, individuals who want us to start talking about what is the next step in terms of opening up, this is not the time to do that. There will be a time to have those conversations, but today is not the day.
I don't know, Dr. Berger, if you guys can answer this, but we talked of how we get people tested, but it feels like the gap, there's so much need out there, the gap isn't met. Is there a digital divide? I mean, should you go to a system similar to what Congresswoman Jackson Lee has, which is just show up and cut off the car number with the number of tests, something that would be easier for vulnerable communities to get to versus trying to get on the phone or get on the internet, because clearly you have much more capacity.
Well, we doubled the capacity, only doubled as of Monday. And really that announcement was made on Monday. In fact, it started on Tuesday, and we've been wrapping up. Just like as of today. I think Butler, is it Butler? What's Steve? Is it? 512 and Butler's at 372. So Butler, for example, we've already met that capacity for today. So Butler is now diverting people to Del Mar. So we will... Del Mar, okay. Del Mar has already met their capacity, and it is about 315. And so Del Mar is already at the 500 capacity, and they are now diverting people over to Butler. As people become familiar with it, and the calling center now is not just giving out authorization codes to, let's say, 550 or 580. They are giving out authorization codes to a lot more, because we understand even when you give out the codes, there are some people who are not, for whatever reason, not going to be able to make it there. So as you can see today, Del Mar is already maxed out. Those people are being diverted to Butler, and from all indications, they'll probably max out today as well. Dr. First, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the mayor's exactly right. And so, Maya, as you point out, there's a lot of moving parts to this. And so each one of them has the opportunity to gum up the works. And so we're learning this because this has never been done before quite like this. And so we've learned, so yesterday when we talked, I told you that we were going to be calling the people who didn't show up yesterday. And so we've done that today. And we got through a pretty good sample. Between the two sites, you could argue that there were maybe 500 people who didn't show up. We tested 500, about 500 didn't show up. And by about noon today, we had been able to get a hold of 50 of those, which is about 10%, which that's a sizable sample. And we found that the two main reasons that people didn't get tested yesterday was when they got there, the line was long, and they didn't want to wait, and so they left. And then the other reason, I went back to something else we talked about yesterday, when people found out that they had to swab themselves, they didn't want to do that. Remember, yesterday I said that we found that when people were doing it, that they were struggling with that they weren't comfortable with it. So some folks, when they were in line and found out, and so they left. Those are the two big reasons. Then there were a variety of other reasons, but they were very low in number. But those are the two big reasons. So we responded to that with the line, but we did this yesterday, but we've got all 4 lanes, and both sites are open. And our throughput today has got better because of lessons. These are little fine-tuning things that we learned yesterday. And so we were able to get, and Stephen, I think that you told me that we, at one site, we had about 300 people through by noonish, if I remember correctly, or 1 o'clock. But so the throughput was much better. So there wasn't the line that people were intimidated by yesterday. So again, this is something we're learning every day, and we're improving every day. We're making changes every day to make it faster. So today we probably hit the 500 both sites.
And let me repeat the message again for the City of Houston testing sites, both at Butler and Del Mar. You don't have to be symptomatic, no symptoms at all. Everyone can be tested who desire to be tested. Simply go to the health department's number, get their authorization code, and go to the Butler or the Del Mar Stadium site. So the process is working itself out, but I feel very confident we'll get to the maximum amount that we're allowed.
Are there any hopes? Because I know a lot of people are excited about the Walgreens rapid testing.
Yes.
Going on in one of the locations in city proper. Where do you see that going? Are you in talks with them to expand that to? There's so many Walgreens, I'm sure.
Hopefully there will be more. The good news is that I certainly want to emphasize what's happening with UMC. The 2 Tidwell sites, the one at Cullen Middle School, those are all within the city of Houston. So it's not just the public sites, it's not just the Walgreens, but UMC has been out there for several weeks in testing. And then I do want to acknowledge again what Hyundai is doing, providing the 10,000 test kits, and we will incorporate that within our inventory. But the testing is not going to come to an end today or tomorrow. It will continue. And so what I want people to know, even if the lines are long, please continue to come because we do need more and more testing and we will be ramping up. And we're all walking through and refining this process as we go along. So it's my hope that more testing sites will come online, more mobile units will be added, and then we'll be able, just like with UMC, to get testing in many of these localized neighborhoods, so that people who may be challenged with transportation, they don't have to go that far. And that's the beauty of like UMC. They're right in those neighborhoods where they have to travel less than a mile or 2 to get to those sites.
I see the sheriff here. I didn't know if you want to talk about the situation inside jail or something. Okay.
Questions to Rep. Sheila Lee Jackson. I want you to be able to comment and answer on these issues from Washington, D.C. First is the national harmonization and coordination. I would assume, and others would agree with me, that we may have reached the recovery phase of this pandemic preparedness and response. If we have, why is politics all in this? First question, what is Washington doing? How are you helping the restaurant sector when they are coming here to beg for the community? That's an aspect of their own recovery. But there's a stimulus amount of money. And nobody's talking about it. And maybe nobody's fighting for that. Maybe you are doing that behind the the back, because everybody says that our politics is not local. So we want to get your reflections on that. And the follow-up to that is the issue of opening up, and we keep hearing about this new task force at the national level, the opening task force. It's creating a lot of confusion because we now have polarization into Republican and Democratic states. And all of this nonsense that is coming from people who are talking and trying to undermine all these other people's job is not helping us. So what is your take, and why is politics coming into all of this? Thank you.
Let me thank you very much, and let me dispel the issue of politics. You're absolutely right. Just before I came here, I was on a 200-person phone call dealing with not having politics, but working on the very issues that our restaurant association has spoken to. First, let me just acknowledge the local leaders here have been stupendous. They will also acknowledge that funding has come to them, particularly on the testing. Funding will be coming and has come to our hospitals, the first crunch. We have advocated, meaning members of Congress, in a bipartisan manner, that the distribution of the PPP funds are not where we would like them to be. We want to expand to smaller banks. We're working on that. And the Restaurant Association and the size restaurants are all coming under PPP. We want to put in more money for those smaller entities like restaurants to be able to benefit quickly. That's been the problem. Because as you well know, PPP is keep your employees, pay your utilities and your mortgage, and it's forgiven. We are committed to ensuring that we put more money there. But as we do that, we're also committed to understanding the health needs and the needs of hospitals. St. Joseph is here. We're working with COVID patients, UMMC, and others, small hospitals around this community. We are committed for them to have their resources. On recovery, I would say that I take a different slant. I think the 50 governors are speaking to the president, but the 50 governors are led by a Republican from Maryland. They're on the line discussing how they can collaboratively, effectively work on the question of recovery, because it is, in many senses, their decision, mayor's decisions, county judges' decisions, and that's how it's going to work. And my argument is that any decision is made on science. It's made on medical professionals. Because I happen to be an optimist. I want my restaurants, and I'm here supporting what the mayor, the initiation of restaurants and takeouts, but I'm also supporting the idea of saving lives. And so I happen to be an optimist. I believe that once we get to the point, and it may be just a window because some are predicting it may come back again, that Americans can be out and about. Our restaurants will be restored maybe in a different way, but I want to focus on keeping those restaurants holding on with money we can give them and give their employees the unemployment, the 13 weeks extra, the $600 extra, so they can come back when the scientists, the elected officials who are executives, mayors and county judges and governors work together to decide they can come back. My task right now is to get them how they can stand up for now, and as well how they can survive by way of health care, testing, and treatment.
Mayor, Judge Hidalgo's office yesterday received a letter from a group called the Houston Coronavirus Business Group. And that group was arguing that the current restrictions on businesses should not go beyond April 30th. Received a similar message from that group or any organized business about reopening the economy by May 1st?
John Jasper, I have not. Look, there were individuals who did not want us to suspend the business of restaurants, bars, and clubs back on March 17th. There were individuals who probably didn't want us to cancel the rodeo on March the 11th. There were individuals who probably didn't want us to cancel conferences and conventions back on March the 5th. And there were individuals who certainly did not want us to issue a stay-home order on March the 24th. But if you look to the Kinder Institute, not my study, but the Kinder Institute from Rice University, they said because those things had been put in place, thousands of lives in Houston had been saved. So I have no regrets about what we have done. And then when you look at the number of people who have lost their lives in Houston, 29 up to today, and look at the thousands of people who have lost their lives in New York City, or the number in New Orleans, or Chicago, or any of those other places, and every life is important. Those numbers for Houston, that number is relatively low. And when you look at the fact that based on what people have done in our region, that our hospital system is still able to handle the caseload within its base capacity, that's a unique story. When you look at the country as a whole, and we happen to be the 4th largest city in the United States of America. So, granted, we are not out of the storm right now, but quite frankly, with the people's support, that have been made, the sacrifices that have been made, where we are, we would not be where we are without their efforts. Now, I think all of us on this stage would love for the city to open up yesterday. But my number one priority as the mayor of this city is to protect the health and safety and security of the people in this city. And I know everybody who's laid off probably want to be back to work. But at the same time, this virus is real. And the decisions we have been making, those decisions have been based on saving people's lives. And just as soon as we can reopen our city, we will do so, but we will do so with the health and safety of our people in mind. That's the best answer I could give to them. Oh, Dr. Person, Dr. Person to chime in.
Yeah, an important concept I think people need to understand is that as we move towards reopening society, and that's not my decision, that's going to be others' decision, but from a public health standpoint, what it is my decision and what it is my area of expertise, is that you need to understand that we, as society moves forward, we need to get back to a situation where we have sufficient testing so we have a good idea of what the virus is doing in our community. Because ideally, we will get to a point where when somebody contracts the virus, we will know that quickly, be able to then do the contact tracing and stop the virus. If you remember when it first came to Houston with the folks that were on the Egyptian River cruise, that's what we were doing. And we were able to effectively stop the virus from that river cruise. It then, mysteriously, we still don't know how the gentleman who was working at the barbecue cook-off got infected. Somebody infected him. And by the way, he just got out of the hospital yesterday. All right, he's been sick this entire time. All right, so as we move forward, one of the things that, from my opinion, from my area of expertise, that has to happen is we have got to have sufficient testing in the community. So that's why the federal government, and I need to thank Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee for all of her work to get the federal government of tests that we have available, but also out until May 30th. And then in addition, the gift today from Hyundai and our partners at UMMC, and we have other partners in the community that are testing, like Legacy Clinic, for example. So we need to get way more testing in place so that we will have the ability to know what the virus is doing so that we can control, to the best of our ability, the virus, while at the same time getting society back on board. Because if you just turn it back on now, all you've done is delayed the spike. So it's a kind of a complicated concept, but the efforts of our colleagues and our friends are vitally important to moving forward.
It sounds like there's also a little bit of a push to put together some sort of coronavirus recovery council. You may have seen Angela Blanchard put together some op-ed about that recently. Do you see the need for some sort of recovery council, and if so, who would be the stakeholders involved?
Well, the county judge and I have had several conversations, and very shortly, just like we did with Hurricane Harvey, I will be announcing a you can say, recovery czar representing the city, and she will be announcing someone representing the county, and they will serve as co-chairs, and I anticipate that taking place in the next few days, if not sooner. And then let me just say, since I've been mayor now for, let's say, 5 years, and I've gone through several storms. And Hurricane Harvey being one. And during the storm, we were telling people, stay off the road, stay off the road, stay off the road. And there were some people who were, in spite of that warning, they got on the road. And they end up putting the lives of our first responders in jeopardy. Because when they found themselves on the road in trouble, who did they call? They called our firefighters, our police officers, and they jeopardized them. This is still, it's not a hurricane, but it is a storm of a different kind. It is one thing to make decisions when you are healthy and you don't know whether or not you have the virus, but you feel healthy, you think everything is fine, and so you're making decisions based on your status. But when you make decisions and then you find yourself sick and you start calling first responders, then you jeopardize their lives and the lives of others around you. Just because you are well, or it appears as though you are well, doesn't necessarily mean you should make decisions for the rest of society when we are fighting an unseeable enemy. And unlike a hurricane that you can see on the radar screen, you cannot find this particular virus on the radar screen. It is the hidden enemy. And this hidden enemy literally can be in your home or standing next to you or in your church or someplace else. And that's what we are fighting against in this situation. And what that means is that the strategies to fight this virus will be different from the strategies in dealing with the hurricane. Because when the storm clears, when a hurricane clears and it's no longer on the radar screen, you can come back, you can come out. But you cannot look on the radar screen and find this virus, and the only way you really can find it is by testing. And that's why we test. And that's why I'm delighted with what the Congresswoman and Hyundai have done, providing the 10,000 test kits. And we're saying, whether you are symptomatic or asymptomatic, go and get a test. Because that will help us to find it. Contact tracing will help us to find it. And then when we know where it is, at least on a significant level, then we can start saying, okay, fine. In the meantime, that's the reason why we're saying to people, put on your face covering. Because you can look healthy, but that doesn't mean you're not carrying it. So put on your face coverings. Now, someone asked me about the plan to move forward. I can tell you, social distancing will probably be a part of the regimen for quite some time. Wearing your mask or face covering will probably be a part of your regimen for quite some time. Working remotely from home will probably be a part of your regimen for quite some time. Okay? And we will enter into open things up, not all at one time, but it will be in phases.
Mayor, I want a clarification on this question. The Attorney General has given an order and is defending churches in Louisiana, Alabama, and other places based on their criticism of discrimination. So I want you to be very clear, because from day one when we started all of this, immediately after your installation, I never heard you say that there's an order or the Congress or the State House or the governor has passed an order that people should not go to church. You kept saying that people should cooperate, people should make sure that they have orders. So what do you have to say to what Attorney General Barr is saying, defending churches now and people who are saying that they have the right, like the other essential services, they have them. Did you make an order to say churches shouldn't come together, or you were just asking them to be able to cooperate somehow? Let's get these things cleared up.
Well, there are some things that just you clear up as much as you can. I certainly respect freedom of religion, and people have certain freedoms. We ask people to abide by social distancing and to worship online. And I will say to you that the overwhelming percentage of worship of faiths have done just that. And so instead of me criticizing people, let me thank them. Let me thank the faith-based community for being very, very supportive. Let me thank the faith-based community for your prayers. We had a moment of prayer last Thursday at noon. Prayer works. So I'm not here to get in a battle with anybody in the faith-based community. I consider myself a person of faith. And I think people are very responsible, and they want to do the right thing. And let me just answer your question by saying, I pray people will do the right thing. Yes, sir.
Council, some leaders were the City Hall this morning to call for COVID-19 rent relief, like Austin has provided, in form of 60-day grace periods for renters who fall behind and on capped late fees. Are you considering those measures?
Well, the Texas Supreme Court has said there can be no evictions through April the 30th. I applaud the Texas Supreme Court for that, and I hope that the Texas Supreme Court will extend that through the month of May. I hope there will not be any evictions through the month of May. I want to applaud those apartment owners like Camden Properties, and we had Swamnil Agarwal who was here. They are both major apartment owners. They are not evicting anyone in the city of Houston. In fact, they have set up funds to provide cash payments to those tenants who have lost their jobs or lost their income. I want to thank them for that. I read a letter from the Houston Apartment Association that indicated that 90% of the tenants in the month of April were able to either reach an agreement or pay their rent in the month of April. They did say May was going to be a very sensitive month. It's my request, and one of the things I will be saying to, for example, to our congressional leaders in a little bit, is the dollars that have already been awarded to cities like the city of Houston allow us to take some of those dollars to do two things. One, to fill in the revenue gap for municipalities caused by COVID-19, and the other to give us the flexibility where we can enter into certain rent relief programs with some of those dollars. The difference between COVID-19 and Hurricane Harvey damaged buildings, brick and mortar. COVID-19 didn't do the damage to the buildings, but it damaged people. It put them in very vulnerable conditions. So if we have I'm simply asking not for any additional dollars for cities like the city of Houston, but just give us the flexibility to fashion programs and strategies that will assist tenants, renters, employees, small businesses, to assist them in getting back on their feet. If we can get that sort of assistance from Congress, then we can meet the needs of so many people within our city.
Okay, to you, Travis and now Dallas counties are requiring face masks in public. Are you and Judge Hidalgo considering the same steps for Houston?
Well, in every one of these press conferences, I've encouraged people to put on their masks. And the task force that we put together, being led by Shannon Buggs, Director of Complete Communities, that's one of the things that we're focusing on, two things for vulnerable communities: education and the resources that they need in order to protect themselves from others in these communities. But the masks and things are critically important. And it could be a bandana, just like Mayor Pro Tem is wearing. It could be a mask. I've had masks made by grandmothers. So we're strongly encouraging that. One thing that I've discovered with mandates, when you're mandating something for vulnerable populations and people who may not have the resources or the means, you need to also make things available. So when you get to the point where you start mandating, you also should have a plentiful supply in order to provide to individuals, communities who are most vulnerable, in order to be able to meet those particular mandates. I strongly encourage people to wear face coverings. I'm not saying we won't get to that point, but as of today, it is a very strong recommendation for everyone, especially when you're around individuals or even when you're at home where there are other individuals, to put on face coverings.
We just have time for one last question. Yeah, the last one. I know you touched a lot on the reopening of the economy, but they want to know if, for these decisions, have you been in touch with Governor Abbott about this reopening the economy?
Well, Governor Abbott is going to be making a pronouncement on tomorrow, I believe. And so we are all waiting to see what those pronouncements will be. I think we're all listening to several, looking at the data, listening to our medical professionals and the advisors on that end. There are a number of indices that you look at to make that determination. I just want to put this cautionary note. While you're still going through the storm, you have to be very careful when you start focusing too much on the other end, while you're still going through the storm. So let's not act like we're out of the storm and everything is fine, because we're not. We're not out of the storm. So patience is a virtue. I know we've asked people to make huge sacrifices, but, we're having those discussions. People are talking about it. I know the president is talking about it today. I know the governor will be talking about it tomorrow publicly. Others are having those conversations. The county judge and I are in the process of naming a recovery, for lack of a better term, czar, one for the city, one for the county, that will be serving as co-chairs. So we're all having those conversations. But for today, let's focus on doing everything we can to mitigate the impact of this virus, to slow the progression, so that our healthcare delivery system will not be overwhelmed.
The last comment by Congressman should be the last. With respect to housing, we are now in deliberation, Mayor, to assist in the non-HUD housing, is what I believe they were asking. And that is that we realize that some housing are investment properties for some. That means they depend on their income on that. And then we know that persons who are in the housing are themselves suffering. So we're looking to provide resources, maybe through the city's request, through CDBG funds, to be able to help what we call those non-HUD properties, because past the April 30th state order, we know that there will be people who will still be in dire conditions dealing with, if you will, the question of housing. And those who are in particular plights are seniors who are living on fixed income, and because of food insecurity, we realize that they will be in challenging circumstances. We are finding out, Mayor, that seniors who are on SNAP, for example, are not able to order online or get delivery at the curbside, and we have many things that have to be addressed. So I would just say that we're going to listen to the mayor, the county judge, and we're going to put forward a CARES 2 package that really focuses on services, helps you in recovery in terms of businesses, and realizes that, as has been said, and what I believe in, that this journey is going to have mountains and valleys. Anybody that thinks that we are there, we still have some mountains and valleys to go through. It is dangerous not to recognize that you have those. I have Mr. Brooks on the phone, and he just wants to say thank you to you, and sorry that the technology did not allow him to be able to say thank you, but he just wanted to say thank you all so very much. Mayor, I do want to end by
Thank you. We are the best responders, first responders, and employees in the whole wide world. And so I certainly recognize that, and I appreciate each and every one of them. So thank you all so very much. Thank you, and we'll meet again, I'm sure. Thanks.
You have 2 minutes. Let me take a picture with this check so you can come down.
So if you build